Hello everyone, welcome to a new chess video. Welcome to the Morra Gambit video, probably the most requested video on the channel. Well, here it is. Today, we're going to see an absolutely impressive gambit that will leave your opponent speechless and be a headache for the whole game. What's the Morra Gambit like, chess teacher? Since it's so famous, explain it to me because it's impressive. E4, the most traditional move in chess, and the Morra Gambit is played when they play c5, the Sicilian defense. We've already made several videos to counter the Sicilian defense, but this'll definitely be the best one, as we play the Morra Gambit. d4. Notice that the goal of the Sicilian is to take on d4, and on our very first move we're already donating the d4 pawn. Therefore, when they take it, we won't take it back because it's a gambit. Instead, we're also going to offer the c3 pawn. In other words, now if the black pieces decide to capture this pawn, they'd already be up a pawn. Notice that we've traded two pawns for just one of the opponent's pawns. So what's so good about this? Well, let's see. Especially, as in all gambits, when we give away a pawn on purpose, it's one thing to hang a pawn, which all of you do just like I do, but if we give it away on purpose, it's to get better piece freedom and a better initiative. Notice that we now have a knight out. Black has nothing, a super strong center pawn that I'm gonna explain how to use. We have bishops that can go wherever they want, while black has them stuck here, unable to go anywhere. Also, look at this queen that can go diagonally. It has open diagonals and also the center file, so it's a very powerful queen. The black queen can only come out through here. Let's see how to take advantage of this. First, the center pawn. What's its purpose? Well, the purpose of this pawn, remember well, is to kick the knight from f6. That is, when they play knight f6, we play e5. Right now, it would be a very strong move because this knight can't come here due to the knight or here due to the queen. It would have to go back. Therefore, playing knight f6 here would be a terrible move, as we could punish it directly with e5. Now, black probably wants to prepare this move and will play first, for example, knight c6 to protect this point here. Now he could safely play the knight to f6. We're going to continue with the move knight f3 to keep putting pressure on this point, because if they play knight f6 now, we'll play e5 again. Therefore, black has to defend it. d6 would be the most appropriate move. And well, we'll continue with the development. Look at what a great development of pieces, with a very well-positioned bishop, and knights also very well positioned. And here the black pieces think they can already play knight f6, because e5 is no longer possible. The thing is, e5 is more possible than ever. Watch closely, okay? We're gonna play e5 anyway. They've brought the knight to f6, so we play e5, just like I told you. And now you'll say, wait, chess teacher, you're giving away a pawn. We're already down a pawn and you're giving away another one. Well, look, this pawn is actually dangerous. It can be taken with the pawn or with the knight on c6. And let me tell you, taking with the knight on c6 is a huge mistake, and they'd already be losing the game. Doesn't look like it, right? It looks like they're attacking this bishop, and we're offering a knight trade. But look, check out this combination. We trade the knight, and now we just take advantage of the queen only being defended by the king to deflect it. Bishop takes f7, check, the king is forced to capture, and now we take the queen, meaning we're up a queen. So, as we've seen, that pawn cannot be taken with the knight. So, how should we proceed? Well, they obviously have to take with the pawn. With the knight? Impossible. What do we do if they take with the knight? We trade knights, and bishop takes f7 wins the queen. Let's see what happens if they take with the pawn, which is actually the best move for black. So, I'm gonna recommend the following. Here, we'll trade queens on d8 and follow a very strong strategy to beat our opponent. So, we'll start with queen takes d8, making the queen trade. And here, black has two options, capture with the knight or capture with the king. Capturing with the king doesn't look strong, because 1, they lose castling rights, and 2, we could take here and the king couldn't go back. These two pawns are doubled and isolated, so the advantage here would be absolutely massive for us, right? So what do the black pieces have to do here? Well, take the queen with the knight. Right, there's no debate here. They have to take with the knight. And then how do we continue? They've lost the defense of this square. We could capture here and we'd just be down a pawn. However, we have a much stronger move. As I always tell you, you have to remember the ideas, not the exact moves. Why? Because if you're just memorizing exact moves and you forget one during the game, you're in trouble. Or if your opponent makes a different move, you're also in trouble. But if you remember the ideas, no matter what your opponent does, you'll know how to place your pieces to execute the plan we've studied. Now then, what's the idea once the queens are traded? Pay attention, okay? First idea, play e5. Second idea, trade the queens. And once we've traded queens, what's the idea? Bring the knights in to try and fork the king and rook over here and over here. We're going to jump with this one because now the threat is even stronger. We'll see that black has several ideas for defending here. The first and worst of all is coming to defend with the king. You'd be surprised how many people come to defend with the king. And this, friends, is checkmate in 2 moves. We capture the pawn with check. The king can't move forward because all the pieces are covering. Therefore, he'd have to move back, and we simply jump with the knight and give checkmate in 2 moves. So here, when we bring the knight here, defending with the king is a terrible move. Another move that could be quite logical to defend this point is playing knight e6. As you can see, they're now defending this point. We simply capture the bishop, and now, after the recapture, we could enter. This is called removing the defender. That is, if they defend with the knight, well, we remove the knight, and now we can enter. Therefore, these 2 moves are terrifying. We win with both. As you can see, this knight here is very strong. If they can't defend this any other way, how should they do it? Well, the only way to avoid the fork is to move the rook. Notice that we're covering all the options. So whatever they do, you know how to respond. Here, the only option left to not lose the rook is to place it on this square here. And here we'll continue as follows. Do we give check so black can't castle? Not yet, because he just comes here and attacks the knight and we'd have to leave again. So here, it's better to prepare knight takes e5, and now we cut off the king's escape. Look at the 2 knights, and we're also entering through here. That is, what are we threatening here? What's the most powerful threat right now? Well, right now we're threatening checkmate in just 1 move, right? What happens? Black has to cover. How can he cover? Can he cover, for example, with the knight? Look, knight here, seems like nothing's happening, right? It's exchanged, and if he comes here, the king moves away. Well, look, because here we're threatening checkmate, and it seems the only possible defense is this one here. However, I'll show you how to take this rook here when they defend with the knight. Notice that these moves are practically forced, huh? If you didn't catch much, rewind the video. I don't want it to be too long. And look now at how to capture this rook here. Simply, the first thing we have to do is capture this knight. That is, remove the defender. And now we're gonna give this check. Look, check. The king can't move forward because the knight is there. He has to come here. And now we take the bishop with check. Therefore, he has to capture. We remove all the defenses, and now we enter from the other side. Check. And we're going to take the other rook. So when we take this pawn here and threaten checkmate, it seems the only way to defend this point is with this piece. And we see how here, after the exchanges, we win this rook here. Therefore, what they have to do is not defend this point right here and try to free the king with the move e6. The only move that saves them is playing e6. And I'm also going to show you how to win against e6. In other words, with this video, we have it all. When they play e6, what's the idea? Well, to give the king an escape route if they come in with a check. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We can't try now to, come here with a bishop or something like that, or castle. Why? Because they'd give us a check, and on the next move, they'd castle. And we've lost all the initiative we had in the attack. Therefore, now we do have to enter with the knight, check, and the king has to go to the escape route. Besides, it's a very bad square, because the possibility of developing this bishop is being lost here. And look at all the pieces back here, unable to do anything. We are much better off. What do I recommend you do now? Well, I recommend you come with the bishop here with 2 threats. The first and most obvious, capture here, and this rook is left with no way out. It couldn't go anywhere. since this square is defended by the bishop. And the second threat would be to come through here, and look, it would be checkmate again. And the only move that defends these two possibilities is the move, right now, b6. And we'll see that we can't take here, nor can we come with a check because it's defended by the pawn. So, how do we continue? Well, here we can continue in Medicles. The truth is that we're already won. For example, castling would be a good option, or even the one I recommend is placing this rook right here on c1 to occupy this open file and put more pressure on the king and be able to attack him. Notice that now the black pieces can't move, the knight can't come out because we'll take it, the bishop can't come out anywhere, it would have to lose several tempos, and even then the king would still be in the center of the board. Also, if this knight tries to come out, for example, through here, we'd also have this fork, so we'd have tactics no matter what the opponent does. Just think a little bit and you'll come up with plenty of ideas. So remember that after the Sicilian, we played d4 directly, giving away the pawn, and now c3, giving away this other pawn. In other words, we've given away a pawn in the opening to end up in a better position. Here we saw what happened if they played knight f6, we directly broke with the pawn, but they can play knight to c6 to defend it. In that case, we'll continue with knight f3, and now the black pieces are going to play d6 to support this point. They have to do it, because if not, what would happen? Obviously, we'd play e5 on them, therefore d6. And now how do we continue with the white pieces? Well, we'll continue with bishop c4. So far, everything's the same. The thing is, everything is great if they play knight f6, because in fact, that's what we want. But of course, chess teacher, what happens if they play e6? Look now how they're cutting off the bishop's diagonal. Therefore, all those little tricks that existed with bishop takes f7 no longer exist. So here, how do we have to continue? Well, here we have many ideas. As I always tell you, what's important? Well, knowing the ideas and not just the moves by heart. For example, here they've changed the plan on us, and if we lost sight of the ideas, well, we wouldn't know what to do. So here we're gonna calmly continue with a castle, since it's a move that's always good. Why? Because we're putting our king into safety. You have to know that it's always a move that's going to be good for us in this gambit too, obviously. And now they could play knight to f6 against us. Why? Because this little trick here no longer exists. We're going to play queen to e2 for several purposes. The first, to support this advance. Obviously, you remember the plan, right? What was the plan? To play e5, right? When they brought out the knight. Therefore, a logical move. Support the pawn with the queen. Plus, in the future, we'll have the rooks connected. And now, for example, after the move bishop to 7, which is surely what you're all thinking, we can bring the rook to the queen square and look at what a beautiful pin we have with the rook on this point. Therefore, we're now preparing e5 in better conditions, with the queen for support and with the rook attacking the queen. Here, a logical move for black could be to castle, right? They haven't castled yet. They haven't put their king into safety. And now, it's our turn. What are we going to do? e5. We have to play e5. This is the key. Look at the piece arrangement we have. While our opponent is trapped here with a bishop that can't get out, with an e5 attacking the knight, also attacking this pawn, they can't take the pawn because we'd take the queen. Therefore, they're forced to move this knight. This bishop hasn't come out yet, while our bishop, look, can go wherever it wants. Therefore, the position is infinitely better. They can't take, so as we said, they have to move this knight. Where can they move this knight? Well, the truth is, the healthiest response would probably be to come through here, since by capturing this pawn like this with knight to 8, they defend it. And what do we have to do here? Well, capture the pawn. Look how easy. And after the exchanges, we simply come with the bishop here, and we're taking advantage of the queen pin to put more pressure on this knight. Notice it's attacked by 2 pieces and defended by 2 pieces. But we can jump with the knight either here or here, and we'd add a 3rd piece. And taking advantage of the fact that this knight can't move, we'd win a piece. We'd win, in fact, this knight because there's no piece. I've said piece 20 times. My goodness. Well, it doesn't matter at all. I'm getting annoyed with myself. There'd be no way to defend this knight. Here, in fact, the most normal thing is for them to play queen to c7, trying to get out of the pin, but they actually get into another one. In other words, there's no way to save it. Also, if they play queen to c7, which is the most used move, I recommend jumping with the knight. Notice we're attacking the queen and also attacking the knight. If they simply take the knight, we take the queen. And if they move the queen, well, simply either here or wherever, we take the knight and we've won an extra piece. Careful, because black also threatens some major tricks, and we have to know them. For example, here they can play e6, a totally normal move to avoid this bishop's diagonal. We play knight f3, knight c6, we play bishop c4, as always, knight f6. And now, how can we continue? Well, for example, we could continue with castling. A very normal move here would be queen c7, and we'll play queen e2 to continue with our standard development. And we also support this point right here. Notice that now black is defending it. We support it as always. Absolutely nothing changes. A normal move here for black, well, it could be, for example, the move a6 to prevent these annoying knight jumps, and the white pieces here could think of a move like this one. This would already be a mistake, because it attacks this knight. Simply, this knight jumps over here, this knight is annoying, I move it away, and here you're already lost. Why? Because they jump with this knight over here, and I invite you to think carefully about this move, because here we're lost anyway. They attack our queen and they take away our defense. Therefore, if they take away our defense, we're going to deliver a brutal checkmate right here. And if not, well, we're going to take the queen. Here, if you want, you can pause the video and you'll see that there's no possible solution. We lose the game either way. Therefore, we have to find a solution to stop this one. Good thing you're on the right channel, huh? Give it a big thumbs up. No, seriously now. I've already recorded this entire video. It had taken more than... It takes me about an hour or so to record videos. I'd recorded it all, and when I go to check the camera, it hadn't recorded, so I had to start all over from scratch. My voice is already starting to shake, so please, if you leave a like, a nice comment, or even subscribe to the channel if you haven't, you'll be helping me out in a huge way. Now then, I'm going to show you how to stop this so it doesn't happen in your games. As you can see, I'm just here to help, so if you help me too, we'll be the best, which in fact you already are. So, chess teacher, I don't want to fall into this trap. Let's go back to see that the mistake was simply placing the bishop here. If you've been paying attention to the video, and especially to what I said, that ideas are more important than moves, many of you will have thought the idea was to play e5. When this knight is here, we want to play e5. And now that it's available, well, we have to play it. Notice that it's even more important here, because for black's trick to work, they need to have this diagonal open. That's why they haven't played d6 at any point. And by not playing d6, well, we take advantage and play this e5. Now we're attacking this knight, which will have to go somewhere interesting, right? If he comes here, he's attacked by two pieces, so he'd lose a pawn. Here, he'd lose the knight. The most interesting one seems to be here, right? Which is now attacking this pawn with three different pieces. If we advance here, they'd take here and we'd lose the pawn. So what do we have to do? Simply defend the pawn while we develop. Now, since I told you this move was bad, don't think moving this bishop is bad, okay? Please. Let's place this bishop here, which is the piece we need to develop, and we'll also defend this pawn right here. Okay, good. And now what? Well, now the black pieces can try to justify this knight jump here with the move f6. We attack this point here, and it's also defended. So now they really can't take because it's penned by the queen, but in the future, maybe they could, maybe they can. Let's see then how we managed to turn the tables and how we managed to win this position, which in fact, I'm telling you, is already won. However, if you don't know the fundamentals or the main ideas well, it's going to be very difficult for you to know how to win this position. How should we continue? Well, here the incredible move is the following. It's a totally brutal move, huh? Knight d5. An incredible knight sacrifice. Why do we sacrifice the knight? First of all, let's see what we're threatening. Most importantly, the queen. We're also threatening this pawn here. Besides, this knight is very well placed, so it's an impressive threat. Now then, chess teacher, what happens if they take your knight? Sure, everything's great if they don't take the knight, but if they take the knight, you're not just down a pawn, you're down a pawn and a knight. Well, here, we'll take this pawn with a discovered check. And it's not just this discovery, but we also discover the queen. Notice that check, and we take the queen. Ah, but black can still save himself. He goes back with the knight and stays up a knight. How can that be, chess teacher? Well, here, simply, Remember, well, we trade these pieces. Look how easy. We trade these pieces. The pin is still latent. And now, as we continue, we take here. Watch out, black seems to have saved himself. I take here and absolutely nothing happens. Well, here, I simply give you the queen. I take here, I give you the queen, which we quickly recover by taking this rook. Look, and how's the position looking? Well, we've ended up in exchange, but not just that. Look, black's pieces can't move. Simply, this bishop can move, and not really, because it's pinned, he can't move anything. This rook can't either because of the bishop. And now, careful, because we're coming with the rook here. Queen and king. This position's totally lost for black. Besides, look at our king. Look at his, right? Nothing more to say. I mean, if you've made it this far, you've achieved a position that's very hard to lose. And with more or less simple play, all of you should be able to win. I'm telling you, in the next moves, you place this here, discover checks with the bishop, and on the next one, it'd practically be mate. Otherwise, you'd win a lot of material. Let's look at an interesting point. Here, they can play, for example, knight c6, knight f3, d6, bishop c4 to block this e6 diagonal. And now we're simply gonna castle. Okay, chess teacher, you're constantly explaining what to do when black manages to get their knight to f6. We have to fight to play e5. Very well, chess teacher, but what if they don't play knight f6? Many of you ask me this in the comments, right? You told me, chess teacher, that if they do this, I do that, but of course my opponent, for example, can also bring the knight through here, and then I don't know how to continue. Well, don't worry. Look, in this case, I'm going to show you a killer little trick if instead of coming through here, they get too clever and want to bring the knight out this way. And it's a move that I just told you was bad in the other position, but in this one it's good. We come here with the with the bishop attacking the knight. Before, this move was bad. Why? Because the queen was around here, this pawn wasn't there, they were threatening many things. Now the whole picture has changed. Yes, chess teacher, but this move seems useless. I'll kick it out, and then what? Are you going to give me the bishop pair? No, I'm simply going to leave the bishop there and take it if you want, because I'm going to jump in with the knight here. Remember the plans I always tell you about? Now, we're going to attack the forks with the knight. And now what? Well, if you take the bishop, which looks like you're taking a free piece, what happens? Well, thanks to the pawn we sacrificed, this queen is free, and we can capture this point here, taking away our opponent's castling rights. And not just taking away castling, but winning the queen. Why? Because now the king can only come here, and after this discovered check with the queen, we're attacking the queen with both the knight and the queen, so on the next move, we're going to gobble it right up. Therefore, this little trick can work very well for us, especially in blitz games. Since I know you love these little tricks, pay attention. What happens if they don't take my bishop? Of course, if they take the bishop, they've fallen into the trap. But what if they don't? If, for example, they play d5 trying to avoid all this, and also attacking this bishop and attacking this one too, how do we save ourselves? Well, we simply move this one to f4, and this one is left unable to take. Why? Because if they capture it, we simply enter through here with this knight. Knight takes c7. Check. And notice that it should be mate. Why? Because the king can't escape, the only way is to give away the queen. And therefore here we'd be left with an extra queen. And to finish with this magnificent gambit, I'm going to leave you a very good exercise to practice, and see if you've understood this gambit well. For example, here black plays knight e7, knight from g to e7. We could continue, for example, with this move that we saw was actually good now. And for example, if they attack us here, we jump in with the knight. It looks like a fairly similar position, but black hasn't played this pawn here, nor have we castled. What happens? Well, here the black pieces seem to have a really good counterattack. What is this counterattack, chess teacher? Well, queen to a5 check. They give us check, and they're also pressing us too much. But here there's a brutal move, which is b4, giving away this pawn, and now they take it with check, and this is the exercise. Let's see if you find how we can win in this position, because black has fallen into our trap. If you want to think for a bit, I'll leave it here. Pause the video and look at it and leave it for me in the comments. Let's see if any of you are able to find this incredible solution. I hope you love this Morra Gambit. I really do love it. If so, give the video a big like, especially because I've had to record it twice and it can't take it anymore. Leave me a nice comment, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video, friends. Bye.